It's Jim, it's Matt, and we are ready to rock and roll and talk baseball here on Thursday. And Matt, interesting situation is that the teams are now starting to see what those opening day lineups might be like. And
Hmm.
uh, I've always thought, and I don't know about you, but I've always thought I always mark down the opening day lineup and then compare it to the end of the season as to who stayed, who did what. Are they did they move much? Did they in any way, shape, or form make themselves better, or unfortunately, in some cases, make themselves worse? So
Yeah,
interesting stuff.
yeah. I mean, things feel like they're so set in stone. Specifically when you break spring training and towards the end of
Hmm.
spring training, it feels like everything is just like concrete and locked in.
Hmm.
And it's just far from it. It's the process of the season and the way things go.
Hmm.
But you hope that when you break camp, those names that headline your roster, that headline
Hmm.
your lineup and headline your pitching staff are the ones that are still available come season's end.
Hmm. Let's start with the guys from the Great White North up in Canada, the defending American League champion Toronto Blue Jays. Starting lineup: DH George Springer. Second in on the batting order is right fielder Addison Barker. Vladdy Jr. at first base in the three hole. Alejandro Kirk catching in the four. Dalton Varsho in center field. Nathan Lukes as your left fielder. Kazumura Akamoto at third base. Ernie Clement at the second base, and Andres Ibanez at the shortstop. Losing Bobo Shed, of course, leaves them, basically structuring a lineup that is going to have Vladdy playing some days, and some days he's going to DH.
Yeah,
So
and I'm if I remember correctly, I believe that sends Andres Jimenez back to his natural position of shortstop, which I
correct.
believe is what he
Mhm.
played in Cleveland before the trade.
Mhm. Right.
So there is that. I think you have a legitimate argument that they may be a better defensive infield now um,
Hmm.
without Boba playing every day. I think
Hmm.
had Boba come back, they probably would have been using him a little bit more. Him and Vladdy probably would have switched off those DH roles because they're
Right.
both not fantastic defenders, each in their own
Right.
respect, but their bats are fantastic.
Right.
Um, that's something that I think they're going to feel. I think it's something where they also kind of had a high hit rate on a lot of those position
Hmm.
players, those guys that you don't know their names. Ernie
Right.
Clement, Nathan Lukes, guys like those. And they need them to continue to come out and play the same kind of baseball that they played last year.
Hmm.
Otherwise, they're in a much different scenario.
Hmm.
I'm skeptical of them. It seems like everybody's ready to just kind of shoo them in. Um, as right there at the top of the
Hmm.
AL East. I think they're a domino or two away following the other direction from
Hmm.
being in that bottom half of the AL East this year.
It's possible. You can go from the top to the bottom pretty quick. Ernie Clement had a hell of a September and even into October. So um, you're banking a lot on a kid who, I don't know. We'll see. Their rotation, no surprise here. Dylan Cease will be their number one. Number two is Gosman. Number three is Varsad. Number four is Ponce, and Jose Barrios is their fifth starter. My guess is that Barrios is going to be slipped down to the sixth spot um, because of the signing of Max Scherzer today. There's also Shane Bieber. Um, he's delayed spring training, so that rotation of the five we just talked about for Toronto is likely to be altered in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, I don't know if Barrios is going to get dropped with the signing. I'm assuming that Max Scherzer signed back with the Blue Jays is what you're
He
saying.
did today, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if at his age, Max Scherzer is now somewhere where you're going to move Barrios off. if he's in good health, because Berrios is just going to have better velocity, a
Mm-hmm.
little bit younger. His arm's going to be more live. I think Max Scherzer is going to be fantastic pitching depth for the Blue Jays, where you see them push into that 6-man rotation spot,
Mm-hmm.
and he kind of gives you spot starts when you want to stretch your rotation out some.
Right.
That'll be good for them. It's a deeper rotation. It's really Cease is a fantastic addition because it makes them a lot more complete.
Mm-hmm.
It, I think you're getting to the point to where you could reasonably expect maybe a little bit of drop off from Kevin Gossman
Mm-hmm.
and potentially even Shane Bieber. But Bieber pitched fantastic last season, and so did Gossman. So when you have that lineup or when you have your first four
Mm-hmm.
as, oh God, why am I blanking? Dylan Cease, Gossman, Savage, and
Mm-hmm.
Bieber. That's a really good front four that you're going to have
Yeah.
there. And three of them, you kind of, or I would say two of them, and Gosman and Cease, you have a pretty good idea of what you're getting. Bieber played well towards the end, and so did Savage. It's really more of, are they able to translate that into a full season's body of work this upcoming season?
Yeah. Let's move down the coast to Baltimore. Gunnar Henderson leads off at shortstop. You got Taylor Ward, left field, Audrey Rushman, catching the polar bear, Pete Alonso at first base, Tyler O'Neill in right field, Sammy Mauricio at DH, Blaze Alexander at second base, Colton Cower in center field, and Cody Mayo at third base. Jackson Holiday, who some may or may not know, broke a bone in his right hand, and so he's going to go on the injured reserve. This season could mean that Alexander gets more starts at second base. In the interim, Jordan Westberg also has a partial UCL tear in his right elbow, making Mayo the starter at third base. So a little bit of banging up there on the roster. But in my mind, with the Orioles, the question is, can the young core of this team, Henderson and Rushman and those guys, with the addition of Pete Alonso, be a better team?
Yeah, and it's something where you need to see some of these younger guys. Like they're not far off.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think from being a legitimate contender in the AL East. But again, things are going to have to kind of fall their way this season, because Adley Rushman is a guy, like if he comes in and he
Mm-hmm.
returns back to that form that you really got, I'd say probably 2023 was his
Mm-hmm.
best year. If he gets back to that form, then they're a much more dangerous lineup,
Mm-hmm.
because then you go where you have some combination of him, Basayo, and Alonso that are
Mm-hmm.
going to be rotating through that DH catcher first base position.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that's a lot of power. Like they are a power lineup if things pan. Tyler O'Neill's a power bat. Taylor Ward's a power bat that plays the outfield. And they're probably going to give up a little bit on defense
Right.
in return for them being more offensive players.
Mm-hmm.
So there is that, and I would say that it's an interesting scenario, but at the same time, it feels like they kind of went all in on we're going to be a great offensive team this year,
Mm-hmm.
because they didn't go sign a frontline pitcher. They made the trade for Shane Baz, and that's going to strengthen their rotation definitely. But
Mm-hmm.
this is an offense that has to produce in order for the Orioles to get back to that really 2023 form where
Mm-hmm.
they won the AL East.
Yeah, I'm not bullish on this team yet. Let's go through the rotation. We have Bradish is their number one. They list Bradish as their number one. Rogers, the only left-hander they have in the starting rotation. Trevor Rogers is their number two. Shane Baez in the three spot. Chris Bassett in the four spot. And they kind of they're hedging their bets here on the five spot with Zach Eflin, and then Dean Kramer. Those are your. It's a very heavy right-handed pitching staff with only Rogers as their left-hander. Now with Bassett signing a one-year deal a couple weeks ago, the Orioles have six legitimate rotation pitchers. Um, and by the way, that doesn't include Cade Pavich, who and right-hander. I'm sorry, Tyler Walls, who are now even more likely to be moved to the bullpen. Um, Eflin went through back surgery in August, but he's been cleared to be a full go. So that's not a pitching staff that throws any sort of fear into me from the American League East.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I think you have a really good like middle level. Like I think that is a rotation that has a lot of threes in it, which is it's a solid rotation. There's no names that pop off the paper, and there's also this problem of, and I've discussed it before when we talked about
Mm,
some of the other rotations, is there is some like psychological something that goes to having the
mm,
number one guy in your rotation, knowing this guy is getting the ball every 5 days and he's going to go out and give you good stuff. Everybody else, it allows them to kind of fall into their rotation slots and find that continuity. And yeah, they list who was it, Bradish as their one.
yeah.
It, sometimes Brad, like there's going to be stretches where Bradish is your best pitcher this year. There's going to be
Mm-hmm.
stretches where Rogers is your best pitcher. There's going to be stretches where Boz is your best pitcher.
Mm-hmm.
So it lacks the continuity and really has a lot of question marks. It feels like instead of answers on that rotation.
I agree. Let's go to the Rays. Their starting lineup, batting order, and that would be Chandler Simpson, who's the left fielder, Yandy Diaz, who will start the season at DH, Jonathan Aranda, first baseman, Junior Camarero, third baseman, Cedric Mullins, your center fielder, Gavin Lux at second base, Jake Fraley at right field, Hunter Frederica at catcher, Tyler Walls at shortstop. Those are the folks who Kevin Cash will put on the field for the Rays this year.
Yeah, and assuming you get the same or similar versions of those guys at the top of the
Mhm.
lineup, they've got a top of the lineup that I think can go toe to toe with a lot of the AL East.
Mhm.
Caminero, Diaz, Aranda, all fantastic corner
Mhm.
infielders that they'll rotate the first base, the third base, the DH, kind of the similar scenario of catcher, first base, and DH in
Mhm.
Baltimore. Um, so they have three really good bats there. They've also got a leadoff guy in Chandler Simpson that is a lot more of your traditional leadoff guy. He's going to get
Mhm.
on. He's going to steal some bases. He creates pressure at the top of
Mhm.
that lineup, which helps you. And then they got creative and they added some different bats. They retooled some of the middle of that lineup with
Mhm.
Lux and Mullins in the middle. But I think where their problem is going to lie is that 7, 8, 9 is a really weak group for them.
Mhm.
It's just not as complete of a lineup, I think, as you're going to see throughout the rest of the AL East.
From my standpoint, I think that the Rays stress defense, and they stress, and this has been Andrew Friedman started it, and they've continued all the way down the line.
Mm-hmm.
That they usually do not beat themselves.
Yeah.
They play a lot of close games, and I would agree. The bottom of the lineup, you know, isn't isn't something to write home about. But um, there's something about this race team. I don't look. I'm not saying they're going to win the division. That's not. I don't believe that for a moment. But I do believe that they will challenge for a wild card, and a lot of it has to do with something we've talked about numerous times, and that is the fact that I don't know what they got in the water, but they get pitching. I mean, this is a team that just year in and year out, it's the pitchers that keep them in these games. Their rotation, they're going to lead off with Shane McClanahan, then Drew Rasmussen, then you got Ryan Pierpont, Steven Matz, and Nick Martinez as their five. If McClanahan, I mean, to me, the key is McClanahan. If he's healthy and back, to his ace form after basically missing 2.5 seasons due to a number of different injuries, uh, he could be, and this is a lot of ifs here, right? He could be one of the best pitchers in baseball.
Yeah, he's a guy. I think he's been gone for so long
Mm-hmm.
due to injury that people don't really remember like who Shane McClanahan is as a pitcher.
Mm-hmm.
He's fantastic. The stuff that he's able to throw, and he's coming from the left side of the mound. And there's something about and guys with velocity from that left side of the mound,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just so much harder to hit for these guys. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
you look at the AL Cy Young standings this past year. You had Tarek Skubal, Garrett Crochet,
Mm-hmm.
Hunter Brown was a lefty, and Max Fried, another lefty. Or
Mm-hmm.
Hunter Brown was a righty, I think. I may have that
Mm-hmm.
mixed up. But still, like three of the top five were lefties, and one and two were
Mm-hmm.
lefties that threw 98 consistently, right?
Sure.
Coming out of
Mm-hmm.
that slide. It's something that's so much harder to hit. And he was fantastic when he was healthy for the
Mm-hmm.
Rays. He
Right.
has that kind of velocity when he's been healthy. And his secondary stuff that he works off of it is really good too. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's not an overwhelming arsenal. He doesn't come at you with 6 pitches. I'm pretty sure he's
Right.
more of a 4 pitch guy.
Mm-hmm.
Really probably going to rely heavily on 2 to 3 of those pitches.
Mm-hmm.
Sprinkle in of that fourth is typically the way it works.
Right.
But again, the top of the rotation guy, he has that ability.
Mm-hmm.
As long as he stays healthy, then everybody else kind of knows how they slot in. And you are
Right.
100% correct that like whatever they have in the water, the pitching lab, whatever it
Mm-hmm.
may be, they can make guys that would probably be like 5 ERA dudes on
Mm-hmm.
another like in another program. They're 3.5 ERA guys. Like that's the kind of difference that their pitching program feels like it makes consistently. I wouldn't make a trade with them for a pitcher because I don't know what I'm getting on the back end of it. I
Right.
doubt it's going to be as good as he is down there.
Good friend of the show, and we'll have him on. Rock Riley, who covers the team, and also another person we'll have on our beat writer for the Rays um, is Steve Katz, and both of them have spoken to Steven Matz, and Matz has told them both that he feels like 4 or 5 years back in his time. In other words, that he feels now better pitching than he did, the last 3 or 4 years. And I think that proves the point that whatever it is, I don't know what it is, but the uh, the Rays get more out of their pitching staff than pretty much anybody else in baseball.
Yeah, and I mean I can't put my finger on it. I mean, at
I
least
have
in
no
terms of
idea.
what they're able to do differently, but I know that the spin rates and the movement that they get on really the sweeper is a pitch that they institute in
Yeah.
every single one of their
Mhm.
guys. And the movement and the break that they're able to get on that
Mhm.
pitch, it doesn't matter seemingly what arm slot or who the
Mhm.
guy is
Yeah.
coming in. They can find really good movement and create that pitch really well.
Let's talk about a team you probably don't know much about. It's the Red Sox. And here's their starting lineup according to MLB.com. Roman Anthony leads off at DH. Trevor Story at shortstop. Jaron Duran at left field. Contreras at first base. Abreu in right field. Caleb Durbin at third base. Marcelo Mayer at second base. Now I'm going to screw this up, but I'm going to do my best. Cedadine Rafaela, center field.
Cedon Rafaela. Yeah.
Cedadine, okay.
Yep.
And Carlos Nunez behind the dish.
Yeah, the Red Sox, they're also kind of in a scenario where I'm not a necessarily the biggest fan favorite of the bottom of their lineup, but it
Mhm.
it works a little bit similarly to that of Tampa Bay's. Like
Mhm.
the philosophy that they've gone into this season was we're going to play defense. Cedon Rafaela, I think he should have won the Platinum Glove this last year.
Yeah,
He
you
played
mentioned
as
it before.
Yeah, he played as good a center field, better in center field than any other center fielder in the league. I don't care that Pete Crow Armstrong was patrolling center field
Mhm.
in Chicago. He was better. Um, And then you've got a two-time Gold Glover and Wilyer Abreu in right field. That's
Mhm.
the guy that I've got circled. He's been one of my favorites since they acquired him
Mhm.
in a trade for Christian Vasquez a few years back. Since he got up, I love Wilyer Abreu. He's fantastic defensively. He came
Mhm.
back this year. He didn't necessarily lose weight, but the weight was essentially repurposed.
Mhm.
He's slimmed down. He's got a lot more muscle. Made some tweaks to his stance,
Mhm.
so he's going to be better against left-handed pitchers. That's been his main struggle. I like him a lot. I also think that the Red Sox are kind of banking on a lot of unknowns, right? Like
Mhm.
that's a little bit of a theme here of the NL East or the
Mhm.
AL East because I love Roman Anthony. He's an all world prospect. He
Mhm.
came up. He had a really good end of the year. He also ended his year hurt.
Mhm.
That's something that's legitimate. He's also not played that much Major League Baseball, and he's
Mhm.
billed as your number one hitter. He's billed as really where this roster and this lineup is going to start.
Mhm.
And it leadoff is the correct position for him. Jaron Duran batting third. That is the correct lineup. That's
Mhm.
the correct order. That both of them hit better in those spots. Trevor Story again a resurgent year, but an injury prone guy.
Mhm.
So they've done a good job, I think, in adding Contreras and adding Durbin. Some of these guys, though, they're banking on a lot of unknown. They're banking on Cedon having a bounce back, having a similar kind of offensive year, and almost improving as well. They're
Mhm.
banking on William Abreu improving. They're banking on Trevor Story being the same type of like contact and power guy that he was for a majority of the back end of last season. And they're also hoping that some of these guys who are injury prone
Mhm.
are going to stay healthy. That's
Mhm.
Marcelo Meyer. That's Trevor Story. Roman Anthony got hurt at the end of last year.
Mhm.
William Abreu's dealt with some stuff in the past. Like
Mhm.
this is not necessarily the most healthy team of all time. And that's really where it relies because a lot of their depth right now, I mean, heck, their second base depth in Romy Gonzalez is starting the year on the IL.
Mhm. Let's look at the rotation. We talked about Garrett Crochet at the top. Ranger Suarez that slid into the number two slot. Sonny Gray in three. Brian Bello at the four slot, and Jonathan Orveda as your right-handed number five. Craig Breslow didn't do a bad job. The top three in that rotation, they've been proven pitchers.
Yeah, there's so Crochet. I don't feel like we need to really touch on him. I think everybody kind of
Yeah,
understands.
everybody knows him.
Yeah,
And Ranger Suarez. Yeah.
Ranger Suarez to an extent. I was again. I've talked about it. Spring
Mhm.
training is the time for overreactions, right?
Right.
His spring training start wasn't the favorite thing, my favorite thing of all time. He gave up 2 earned runs in like an inning and a third or something like that, or 2/3. That his fastball was sitting in the low 90s, like I think it was sitting around 90, 91. So that's not velocity that gives me a lot of hope. Um, Brian Bayo's a guy. He kind of rode the wave. He had a much better season last year. You need him to break out. Again, you're kind of banking on some breakouts here. I think you made some good additions, but you're banking on improvement being exponential here,
Mhm.
and that's not always promised. Oviedo, high upside guy, throws really hard, has a lot of good breaking stuff. He's a fun guy. That's kind of
Mhm.
like a what if. Sonny Gray's in there as well.
Right.
Really, where the strength of this Red Sox rotation is, though, is they have the number one, and they have a lot of kind of like that same baseline of talent that the Orioles have, but
Right.
they have a lot of depth sitting in those minor leagues as well with
Mhm.
Connerly Early and Peyton Tolley
Mhm.
sitting and waiting. And oh yeah, you also have Patrick Sandoval, who's they've
Mhm.
kind of just had sitting here for a couple of years because he was hurt. He did have Tommy John surgery.
Mhm.
And Lord, if he returns to some kind of the form that he was with the Angels prior to his Tommy John surgery,
Right.
he's either going to be a really important piece to their playoff run, or he's going to
Mhm.
be a really good trade ship come
Some of
trade.
the time, yeah. Let's take a look now over at the Yankees. They're going to start off with Trent Grisham at center field, the Judge in right field in the number two spot, Cody Bellinger. Just looks familiar, folks. It pretty is much from last year. Judge and Bellinger protecting each other. Ben Rice at first base, Giancarlo Stanton at DH, Jazz Chisholm at second, Ryan McMahon, good Lord, Ryan McMahon at third base, Jose Cabrera at shortstop, Austin Wells as your catcher. They did sign Goldschmidt, so Goldie is back there in February, and he could platoon at first base with Rice. Armand Rosario could be in the lineup to play third, but that probably wouldn't happen unless they're going to platoon him against left-handed hitters.
Yeah, and the Yankees did a better job really at the trade deadline, and they retained most of those pieces coming into
Mm-hmm.
this year and getting better at platoon. It felt like Boone was just trying to throw out what he felt like was like a best lineup instead of
Right.
playing to advantages for a lot of last year. And the additions of Caballero and Rosario McMahon at the deadline last year allowed them to be more versatile in their lineups that they could throw at the different sides of the pitching, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's a positive. But I still look at this roster, and I think this was a roster that was, had Aaron Judge's elbow injury last year been significant,
Mm-hmm.
the Yankees were going to sell at the deadline.
Yeah.
And my question would be, are you a Ben Rice popping? Are you a Jason Dominguez finally showing up? Are you a Jazz Chisholm continuing to do what he did last year, away from being able to kind of continue on that pace? Like, how did you get better as a team? It feels like the way that they're going to have gotten better this year is simply by the development of the guys that they have in the building. That's really the only way, is some returns from injury and the development that you have in the building, because you didn't go out and you didn't make a big addition.
Right.
You retooled a lot of stuff, which I think is going to help their bullpen in the long term, because at the end of the year, I think that bullpen, Luke Weaver and Devin Williams specifically,
Mm-hmm.
were really more of like a head case at that point. They just were not reliable. You did not know what you were going to get. Both of them had their blow ups at times. Um, so I think retooling and having Bednar now
Mm-hmm.
slotted firmly in that closer position
Mm-hmm.
is going to do good things for their bullpen. But in terms of the lineup, I struggle because it didn't feel like they were a World Series team with that lineup last year.
Mm-hmm.
And now you're going to take a breakout from one of the younger guys, I think, to really get you to that offensive place where you're talking World Series contender in the Bronx.
Let's look at the rotation. Max Fried in the one slot, Cam Schlittler in the number two slot, Will Warren in the number three slot, Ryan Weathers in the four spot, Luis Gill in the five spot. Carlos Rendon is probably not going to get back from um, his left elbow surgery. Maybe early May. Um, Garrett Cole probably won't get back until May or June. So there's going to be some time passed by here for the Yankees rotation. Obviously, their number one and number two is pretty good, but beyond when you go past Withers, I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, and they're going to be in a situation where their pitching depth is a little bit like it's better once they're healthy, right? Like their
Yeah.
pitching depth is solid right now. It allows them to weather the storm of not having Rodon and Cole necessarily in that lineup to
Mm-hmm.
start the season. Um, but it's a rotation that kind of needs them to come back and be those top of the line guys.
Mm-hmm.
They have the brand power and they have the pitching in their rotation, but those guys just have to be healthy. I think when they are healthy, they're one of the best rotations in Major League Baseball.
Mm-hmm.
But again, what version of these guys are you getting when they're coming off of these injuries, since they're missing significant amounts of time? I don't know.
Yeah.
And the guys that they have below them, I mean, good God, one of my buddies is a really big Yankees fan,
Mm-hmm.
and I think he was ready to ship Will Warren off for a bag of Doritos at the midway point of last season. So it's something where each of those Yankees pitchers have gone through their stretches where they've pitched really well, and they've had their moments where they've struggled. And I think when they are healthy, they're one of the best rotations in Major League Baseball. It's finding consistency in those times where they pitched really well and allowing them to build out a more full rotation while you're missing Rodon and while you're missing Cole.
Uh my feeling on the Yankees, I honestly don't think is this may sound stupid, but I really don't think that there is a clear cut number one team in the AL East this year. I mean,
No,
obviously Toronto, has a lineup that has been road tested, and there's no question about that. But I'm not crazy about any of these teams as far as do they every one of them has potential, but
yeah,
none of them to me is a lock.
yeah. It feels like we know the most about the Yankees at this point in time.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think that's saying a lot because we know the most about the Yankees, and yet
Mm-hmm.
we're sitting here and we're talking about the Orioles, the Red Sox, and the Blue
Right.
Jays still being potential contenders, right?
Mm-hmm.
I
Right.
think that speaks to the level that we think the Yankees are going to be at this year, and it also is indicative of what people like believe those pieces on those teams are going to be. They believe they're going to pop. When you're sitting here preseason, you always believe they're going to pop. You're sitting in a scenario where everybody's optimistic heading into the season, right?
Sure.
Um, so I would say the Yankees' floor is probably the highest of everybody, but
Mm-hmm.
I would also say that their ceiling is not the highest of everybody
Right.
as well.
I'm concerned about Giancarlo Stanton. I mean, how much? I mean, he's the DH, but that guy has had injury after injury after injury. I don't even. I doubt, although he probably could. I doubt that if they needed him to play in the field, that he could do it.
Yeah, I think if he did do it, it would be a legitimate hole, or not think.
Oh yeah,
If he played in the field, it's a hole, right?
you got to
Like
hide him.
he can't
You got to
move.
put him in right field and pray nobody hits the ball out there.
Yeah, like I think they're willing to like start him in left field at Fenway. That's one of like
Well,
the
okay,
only
that's yeah,
places.
that's
Yeah,
like deep shortstop.
yeah, exactly. Um, so yeah, he's definitely got a health concern, but when he is healthy, I mean his powers is
Mhm.
regardless of how fast he runs around the bases.
Right.
It doesn't matter how fast you run the bases if you're taking a trot. So
Well, he
there
can hit
there
the
is
ball as far as Judge if when he's healthy.
yeah, so there is that aspect of it,
Mhm.
and It's it's one where I think it is Giancarlo Stanton is a little bit of like he kind of handcuffs the Yankees in a sense.
Mhm.
He commands a lot of money. He can only DH. Like those are legitimate things that are out there. And I bring up the commands a lot of money because part of the reason like the Yankees didn't really want to spend as much money this offseason, I don't believe. And had that money been available, then you would have been able to go out and get a guy that's of a higher impact bat, probably. Um, but they didn't, and this is the cards they've been dealt. So it does hamstring them with a guy that can really only DH because it takes away your ability to against the lefty. You can DH Ben Rice and allow him to still get ABs versus a left-handed pitcher, but you can also
Mhm.
start Paul Goldschmidt at first base, right?
Mhm.
So there is that. But again, Ben Rice is a guy that can play. He can play first, he can play catcher, and he
Mhm.
also can DH. So they'll get him in the lineup a lot, I think, as they should. But it is a hole because he really is a one trick pony in the fact that he needs to hit a home run or hit it off the wall, and otherwise, he's pretty much valueless out there.
Well, think about this. He is on his 16th year in Major League Baseball, and he will turn 37. In June. It's not getting any younger, and
Yeah,
I don't know. Look, I wish him all the best. Shane Carlo is probably one of the most personable baseball players out there. I mean, he does everything. He stands there, signs autographs till he's blue in the face. He is a good ambassador for baseball, no question about it. But sometimes you got to look at yourself in the mirror and say, when is it time to pull the plug on this career? I'm not saying it's that point for Giancarlo now. I'm just saying his best days are on the back nine, and he's on the on the front nine. His best years were there. He's on the back nine now, and I don't know if he's not on 16, 17, or 18 at this point.
Yeah, yeah, and it's fully going to be dependent on his health. If he stays healthy, which it is partially up to the Yankees. Like they have the ability to protect him. They have the ability to not play him in as many games and kind of save him for that stretch run. Because I think we can sit here pretty safely and say that even if the things have not like gone the Yankees' way this year, they're probably still going to be in the hunt come, August.
Sure.
So you've got it feels like when you've got a bat like that and a one trick pony like that, it's something that you kind of have to they're going to have to save and hold on to. And I mean, I'll just be honest about this. I don't think Aaron Boone's a good manager at all. His decisions consistently confuse me. I like him a lot of the time because, you're in a one-run game and he's bringing in Devin Williams in the 8th, and you're like, man, this guy just gave up 3 yesterday. Like, what's he doing?
This is the guy, the gas on the fire guy. What are you bringing him in for?
Yeah, and so his decision making. Sometimes I think last year specifically he was hamstrung by a lack of personnel and a lack of an ability to make decisions. But sometimes he had the ability to make good decisions, and he just failed last year. So I'm not confident in Aaron Boone himself necessarily pulling the strings the right way. I think managers matter more than people realize. Like, I think the reason the Yankees were what they were last year had a lot to do with who Aaron Boone was as a manager. I think the same can be said for the Red Sox. Like, I don't think the Red Sox last year had a good enough roster to get what they got necessarily, but Alex Cora being the head man, I feel like made a lot of difference in a lot of those games in June and July and August that kind of get just lost through the cracks where you want a one-run game here because you made an important switch or you went to the bullpen at the right time in this game versus, where you're losing some of them that way in the same scenario with the Yankees.
I'll give you a name when people don't seem to feel or underappreciate what a manager could do. Terry Francona. Everywhere he goes, he wins.
Literally everywhere. Like he won in Boston. He went to Cleveland. He won in Cleveland. He's in Cincinnati now. He got them to the playoffs. His first year in Cincinnati. Yeah. What Tito does is ridiculous. Player manager, I think, is the way they describe it. Yeah. But as much of a player manager as he is, which I think probably uplifts your clubhouse spirits, he also pulls the right strings.
Well, he knows. I mean, he's a baseball lifer. He was a quality baseball player. He worked his way up, and when he got the opportunity, he made the best of it. And he said to me, I agree with you. There are guys who there are managers capable of stealing games from you. And he certainly is either at the top of that list or pretty damn close to that list. And it doesn't take long to call the roster on that. I would also say in that Bruce Bochy is in that category. Bochy won World Series titles when the team that he had was was a wild card team. They didn't win the division.
Yeah.
But they won championships.
Yeah.
So, there's no question that managers make a great deal of difference. And I think that we're seeing right now the teams that have the good ones. And look at Doc Roberts, I'm trying out in Los Angeles, former Red Sox.
Dave Roberts.
Yeah, Dave. Look at what he's done.
Yeah.
I mean, he got the opportunity and he pushes the right buttons. Granted, he's got a lot of good buttons to push, but nevertheless, he pushes the right buttons. He knows what to do, and he's a guy. Um,
Yeah.
so there are major. I agree with you 100%. There are in baseball, managers count, and they can be. You got to know when to. You got to know your players so well that you can either take the pitcher out or put the guy in. When do you put your closer in? Because a lot of these guys, especially Boshi, because Boshi, really has been very good with pitchers. Boshi had no problem putting his closer in the seventh inning because that was his high leverage inning at that point.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's something that isn't really like it doesn't feel as common in today's game.
Mhm.
Like your ninth inning guy is your ninth inning guy.
Right.
It's something that I saw last year. Uh,
Mhm.
Alex Cora do with Aroldis Chapman sparingly, and to an extent, I get the math on not necessarily always throwing your highest leverage guy in their like
Mhm.
unscheduled slot because there were some times last year that it didn't work with
Mhm.
Aroldis Chapman where he came out in like the eighth instead of the ninth, and for whatever reason, he just went out there and threw a stinker that night, which didn't happen very often. So it pays off. I feel like that's one of those things where you're generally going to look at it hindsight, like either you're a genius or you're an idiot, depending on the outcome, right?
Mhm.
But it's definitely something that I think can have added value. But again, it's on a player by player basis, and that's why you have to have a good feel. Like the Yankees moved Devin Williams out of the closer position,
Mhm.
didn't really help him a whole lot. Same kind of goes with Luke Weaver. He was a guy that was in
Mhm.
the closer position the year prior. They dealt for Devin Williams. He moved out of the closer position, and he wasn't necessarily the same pitcher.
Mhm.
So it's something that is legitimate, and baseball is seemingly, half like it's at least half psychological as it is
Right.
physical.
It's crazy. Bef- we'll get to the other divisions in the other leagues later, but just a couple of final points here. We talked about Max signing back with the Blue Jays, and the irony here is his daughter sent a handwritten letter to the president of baseball ops in Toronto, and basically, I mean, she's like 7 years old, I think. Here's the letter. Dear Blue Jays, and this is, by the way, this is dated December 15th, 2026. I'm sorry that you lost the World Series. I hope that you win the World Series this time. I hope my dad is still on this team. We like Toronto. We love the Blue Jays, and I'm trying to read. Her handwriting is worse than mine. Okay, yes, and we hope to. It's fun to go to the stadium. The fans are great. Looking forward to coming back next season. Love, Max Scherzer's daughter. So that caught me as kind of a funny um, little aside from all the baseball things. But there's something in Atlanta that some good news. If he's as good as his dad, and that's Tommy Glavine's son Peyton signing with the Braves.
Hmm. I was unaware that that happened. When you said good news in Atlanta, I was expecting maybe a pitcher didn't tear his elbow.
Well, I can't. That one I can't. So,
They
so
did
what?
they did sign Chris Sale to an extension.
Yeah,
So
that's a good
that
thing.
that was a plus. So now that means he's due for another elbow injury here
Right
shortly.
about the time that Peyton Glavine gets a chance to go to the go ahead.
Yeah.
Um, according to this, I'm trying to figure out. The younger Glavine was signed to a minor league contract with the Braves. He just turned 27, and he's joined his dad's organization in an attempt to prove that he had a shoulder injury in the national system um, that got exacerbated over the past couple of seasons. So he's not really been uh, throwing much in the last 3 seasons. The let's see what else we got here. he's been assigned to their Double-A Columbus team. He made 3 appearances in 2023, missed all 2024, recovering from shoulder surgery. He re-injured his season. I'm sorry, shoulder with the Nationals High A Wilmington team last year. But this is, through 27 games prior to that, he had a 3.64 ERA. And the Nationals thought very highly of him, but he was, and that was the last regime, by the way. The Nationals have cleaned house, so Peyton Glavine to the Braves. It's one of those things where you wish the kid well, right? I mean,
Mhm.
it's hard to go to a team. Look at Vladdy. I mean, my God, how tough is it to follow Vladimir Guerrero?
Yeah.
It's crazy. So the fact that he's done so well, I think, is amazing. Connor Griffin, who's 19 years old, is the Pirates' new jaw dropper.
Mhm.
He's a multi-sport athlete. He excelled in football. Could have gone pro in football. Could have gone pro in college basketball. They say. But right now, um, the Randy Moss sent a thing out. He's a Pirate fan, and Randy was talking about this kid being able to make spectacular catches and basically throw the ball from the center field bleachers into to home plate. So we'll see. But
Yeah.
you get a shout out from Randy Moss. That's not a bad thing.
No, I had the luxury of watching, I was at a Rome Emperors game for
Hmm.
Father's Day this past year,
Hmm.
um, and just happened to be playing the Pirates low A or
Hmm.
high A affiliate,
Right.
and Connor Griffin was there, and Connor Griffin homered, and I watched him, and it is a different sound that comes off of his bat. When the number one prospect walks up to the plate, there's a visual difference that
Hmm.
applies there. And the Red Sox were the victim of
Hmm.
him in spring training to the tune of 2 homers the other day.
Hmm.
Kid's fantastic. It just begs the question, say he starts the season on the opening day roster, and he plays really, really well, and he starts living up to this potential. Then the next question that follows is, well, how long is he going to be on the Pirates?
If if history is any indication,
Not long.
well, what I was gonna say is he won't come up.
Yeah.
And what that because they're going to buy him another year by bringing him up in late May or June. If I
Yeah.
had, that's a pure guess. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm saying it, but I'm thinking, all right, the Pirates, if they bring him up now, this season counts, and that's they want to squeeze as much out of him as they can. So
Yeah.
I'm thinking that I'm not saying he shouldn't be on the opening day roster, but I'm just saying that's the moves that a cheap team makes, right? Is they hold that kid back for a month or two. But I think you can't bring him up. If you bring him up in May or June, the clock doesn't start ticking until that point in time.
Yeah. Yeah, you have to wait about 2 months, I think it typically is, for you to call up those guys and
Mhm.
still maintain that extra year of on their contract.
I know the
Um,
Nationals did that with Soto and with Bryce Harper.
yeah, yeah, the
So,
Red Sox have done it with a lot
mhm,
of their top
right.
prospects recently in their penny pinching ways.
Hmm.
Um, but it's also a move that would kind of contradict their offseason a little bit, right?
Hmm.
Because they went out and they got Brandon Lau from the Rays, and they
Hmm.
signed Ryan Mountcastle. They traded for Johnston Garcia, which, well, they had to give up Johan Oviedo, but that's where they could give up from. They have the pitching depth. They have Bubba Chandler waiting in the system. Jared Jones is hopefully going to be back again this year. So their pitching rotation, they were able to trade from a surplus. It was surplus for surplus between that Pirates and Red Sox trade. Um,
Hmm.
And Johnston Garcia is a guy who has the ability to be a very good baseball player. They made a lot of interesting moves. Maybe not they didn't go out and they didn't spend $120 million on a guy. They didn't
Mhm.
have to go out and spend $120 million on a guy. They made some good additions. And if you're going to compete, like if this is legitimate and you made these moves in a hope of putting a competitive product on the baseball field, then Connor Griffin is on your opening day roster. I know there's a high a I don't know if it's a high or a good chance, but there's one of the two that Connor Griffin is not a Pirate to start the year. But when that happens, it's a disservice to Griffin.
Well,
Pirates fans, by the way.
right. Bob Nutter, who owns the team, it's the lowest payroll in baseball.
Oh, yeah.
And Nutting um, is getting huge um, grief from the fans. But here's where the thing where he might be in the sale path situation to a local owner, or if in a dream world, it would be Mark Cuban. But and that is that when you see the Orioles get sold and the Rays get sold for nearly $2 billion, if you put a Pirate team on the field now, a quality team, and that whole picture changes, then it makes it interesting to see whether he would sell. And let me just say that I know this to be a fact, that Major League Baseball, the owners they loathe Stu Sternberg when he was with the Rays. They loathe Nutting. They do not like the fact that these guys are not putting competitive teams on the field.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't know what
It
just
hurts
happened.
the product as an overall.
Yeah. I don't know what happened to my camera. It was here a minute ago. It's gone now.
Oh, yeah.
Can you still hear me?
Yeah, I can still hear you. You're just
Okay.
frozen.
I'm just gone. Okay. Um, anyway, at the end of the day, I think that one thing we're going to find out, and that is, I believe the owners in baseball are fed up you know, with guys just not spending money.
Yeah, but then the question goes to, well, what are they going to make of the A's owner? What are they going to make of the Rockies owner? Like it's not just Pittsburgh that
No. I'm not saying that. I'm
they
going to
just happen
say,
to be.
yeah,
I'd say they're just
the
well,
tip
I
of
mean,
the iceberg. Right.
Colorado's pretty bad.
Hmm.
Like I don't know who they've spent
They
money
don't
on.
even have a scouting system.
Yeah, I mean they went out like their only big signing that they've made
Hmm.
in the past, what feels like at this point, it feels like a decade,
Hmm.
was Chris Bryant, and they might as well. They would have been better off just. I mean, heck, they could have gave that money to me. I might have been able to do more for him than Chris Bryant has at this point.
You probably
So
done more.
yeah, so the Rockies aren't absolved from this either. I think the A's are absolved a bit because they've extended some of these younger guys. Granted, the extensions are in an attempt to avoid arbitration through those years, so they aren't necessarily true extensions.
Hmm.
Um, but still, they went out and they signed the guys to these extensions. Jacob Wilson, Nick Kurtz, both of those guys signed extensions. So there is that. But then on the backside, they trade away Mason Miller. Like I think that's part of the problem too in these non-spenders. It's not only you're not creating a competitive product; it's that every year you're selling, so the pieces that you have built, like the good pieces of your team, end up elsewhere. They end up benefiting contenders a lot of the years.
Hmm.
Brian Hayes is a good example of that out of Pittsburgh. He was Gold Glove caliber third baseman. His bat didn't necessarily match up the same way it did a couple years ago, but he was still such a good defender that you can hit 230 and play the defense that he played and be a valuable addition to the team. He's not there anymore. If Brian Hayes was in there, then I think the Pirates would probably feel a lot better about having a complete infield with Connor Griffin, with Ryan Mountcastle,
Hmm.
with Brandon Lau. So I think that they're not far off, or they wouldn't be far off if they still had him. But they chose because they knew they were not. Well, actually, no, they didn't know that. In fact, I think they signed Brian Hayes to an extension, and then they
I think you're
shipped.
right. I think you're right.
They had buyer's remorse on Brian Hayes. That's what it was.
The this alarm for some reason drives me nuts. There we go. Um, the, in the final thoughts of this, I just think that um, we're going to see, because of the way baseball is being done, and whether or not we ever see baseball again next year. I think we're going to see owners looking at that amount of money that they can sell the franchise for, and step out of the limelight and say, you know what, I I can wander out and cash a check for $2 billion, and I don't need this grief anymore.
Yeah, and I think that's a question that, like, what's Bob Nutting's answer to that?
Mhm.
Like, is it worth the continued? And I don't know how much of it like actually makes it to his desk, but it's
Mhm.
clear and obvious that he does not care about the Pittsburgh Pirates as a franchise overall.
Mhm.
I
Right.
don't think that's a secret by any means.
Mhm.
So why is it valuable? Why is it valuable to make a couple? I don't know his exact numbers, but I'm assuming he's probably making somewhere in the neighborhood of like 50 to 100 million himself every
Right.
year on the Pirates. Well, why not just cash in 20 years worth of that, get rid
Mhm.
of the headache, and move on? Because I mean, you don't love it, you don't care about it. What? Why? This is a check for you to cash annually. At this point, just take the bigger one and let people enjoy what you're actively destroying.
Well, I will tell you, um, Pittsburgh is probably one of the best sports cities in the country.
Hmm.
They have supported the Steelers, from the day, the early, from the late '60s when they were horrible, through the '70s when things got, that was the Chuck Noll go to the Super Bowl time, and all the way through. They fill out the igloo, playing for the Pens. So, and they would love, and they still go to the baseball games. I have an aunt and uncle, um, number of relatives in Western Pennsylvania. They don't miss a single Pirates game. They don't, they know they're going to lose,
Hmm.
but they don't miss a game. And so you look at the ratings of the Pirates on television, and they're, consistently in the top 10 in
Yeah.
baseball. And so you're sitting there going, well, this is a franchise that has a beautiful ballpark. I mean, that ballpark at PNC Park is about as nice as you're going to find.
Hmm.
Um, if they just had a team, they'd sell out. You know, they'd be competitive from a sellout standpoint with probably, I, only because of St. Louis and Chicago being in that division. Um, they would probably be hanging right around that Chicago and St. Louis number.
Yeah.
Because when the Pirates were good in, through the '70s, '80s, and into the early '90s, they did very well. And so that's what bothers me. It's like you're underserving a community which, if you study any piece of baseball history, that the Pirates have always been a very good team from a standpoint of the fan support.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if you want the proof of that, you can go back to their last playoff appearance and you look at that
Hmm.
environment and what they were able to put on the field.
Hmm.
It has that potential. That is something that is realistic, but it's just not ever going to be realized when you have that dumbass Bob Nutting running the show.
Yeah, and he clearly, if he cared about the fans at all,
Yeah, I mean, let's call a spade here. He does not give a shit. Like,
no,
he
that's true.
there's a video of him in a box and there's a dude sitting next to him being like, spend money on the team, and he has this like smirk and he just shrugs his shoulders. He does not give a shit
Mhm.
about the Pittsburgh Pirates or their fan base.
All right. So the fact of the matter is, the guy spent, I believe, it's $310 million to buy the team. Now, I'm not good at math at all, but I'm pretty sure that 2.2, $2 billion is more than a little over $300 million.
Yeah, just by a little bit. I think
Again, I'm not
math
good at math,
out
but
there.
and I'm confident of that. But you know, cash the bloody thing in and get the hell out, dude. I mean, you don't want it, you don't
Yeah,
care. And God love, I wish George Steinbrenner was around still. George got pissed off at an owners meeting one day and just said he's tired of subsidizing people who don't give a damn about the game.
yeah.
And he goes, I don't want to do it anymore. And that was remember they did the revenue share, which was kind of like the cap
Hmm.
that you gave, the bigger teams and the bigger markets gave money to the little teams and the little markets and all that routine.
Yeah,
And that's the boss just blew up and just said, "Look, I'm tired of it."
yeah,
He goes, you're in this game or to play, or you're not. And
yeah,
he called guys out.
yeah.
So,
I
you
mean,
know, is Nutting the only one? No, but he
no,
is definitely at the top of the list of people who is a who abuses a fan base that for years, decades, has supported their teams.
yeah. If Steinbrenner was around, there'd be a lot of owners that he takes issue with. You could
Oh
go
my
through
God!
his son. I think.
I was going to say he'd disown Hal. Um,
Yeah,
no,
well,
George wanted to win. Um,
and he did.
funny, quick story about George. Um, George George made before he bought the Yankees. George tried to buy two or three different football teams. George was a football guy,
Hmm.
um, and then he wanted to own the team. And at the time, his business was in Lorain, Ohio, which is suburban Cleveland. He tried to buy the Cleveland Indians, but the league wanted Vernon Stouffer to get the team. So
Hmm.
they go, and the Yankees are losing. This is at the time when the Yankees were losing tons of money. CBS owned the Yankees at that time, so they ran in and said, "George, buy this team." So George buys the Yankees. Lifelong Yankee hater, by the way, because he grew up in Cleveland and was not a fan of the Yankees.
Hmm.
So George buys them, and then he decides, okay, if I got this team, I'm going to go and spend money and make them win.
Yeah.
So as colorful and as crazy as George was, and he was, um, George was good for baseball.
Hmm.
Now, did he do stupid things and get himself in trouble from time to time? Absolutely.
Yep.
But I'll take an owner that's crazy versus an owner that doesn't give a damn.
Yeah. Absolutely. Like I mean, I don't think it's probably the worst kept secret in the world that
Mhm.
Red Sox fans significantly prefer the John Henry of
Mhm.
the early 2000s over whatever the hell he is now.
Right. Well, I mean, the problem is, and and I know we've mentioned it before. And I don't want to beat up on the Red Sox solely because there are others that do it, but um,
But the Red Sox have earned it.
we'll put the Red Sox in the middle of this. When you start putting out there Fenway, you've got Fenway where you franchise things like a NASCAR team, where you got
Mhm.
buy a team in the ELP. When you go through all that crap and you're spending all this different money on different projects, and you create, basically Fenway Park is a tourist attraction,
Yep.
um, not a baseball field, but a tourist attraction.
Yep.
Um, you got to wonder if you're a fan, what do they really care about us anymore?
Yeah. No, I mean it's the question that was raised specifically last year after the Rafael Devers trade.
Mhm.
I've outlined the story of events, but they trade
Right.
Devers and then they sign a massive transfer over there for what is it? Liverpool, is that the one they is that
Yeah.
the club they own?
Yeah, they own Liverpool.
Yeah, so I would like it to be known that I have no vested interest in the English Premier League, but I'm rooting against Liverpool in all their games. Um,
Well, you're lucky because they're not winning a lot, so
that's good. Maybe they'll realize it's a dead asset, and the Red Sox are a better investment. Yeah, but those things lined up clearly, and then they go out and they don't really spend the money as aggressively as they had
Mhm.
promised, and it just leads everybody to sit back. And maybe it's true, and maybe it's not, and we have no way to know. But you sit back and you look at the dots, and maybe they just happen to just like it's almost like the stars, right? The stars are just out there, but I'll be damned, some of them happen to align in the shape of a little dipper, right?
Mhm.
They're not necessarily directly connected, but you can draw the lines and come to some conclusions based on the dots that you've been presented on the graph.
Right. And again, not beating up on the Red Sox, but
No, go ahead. Go
taking
ahead.
this opportunity. Basically, if you if we're going to go we're talking about Liverpool, right? If you're
Mhm.
going to go dollars to dollars, Liverpool makes a ton more money than the Red Sox.
Mhm.
I mean, that's just a fact.
Yeah.
I'll give you here's a number for you. Liverpool, and this is now in euros, not in U.S. dollars. Well, I'll give it to you in U.S. dollars. They made $770 million last year. The Red Sox made $525 million last year.
Yeah, and look, if I take off the Red Sox hat and I put on the smart businessman hat right here,
Mhm,
then yeah, you invest in Liverpool every time. You put that product on the field out there in the English Premier
mhm,
League because it's going to make you more money. That
mhm,
doesn't make Red Sox fans any happier. I think the thing that works in Fenway Sports Group favor in terms of the Red Sox and getting away is what you've talked about, them turning Fenway into a tourist attraction, it making as much money as it does on them being the Red Sox and them being and it being Fenway Park more than
mhm,
the product that they put on the field consistently. So they're allowed to get away with that stuff. And the only people they have to answer to are angry fans, which if they don't
mhm,
want to deal with the angry fans, they just don't open Twitter and they're fine, or
mhm,
don't show up at the games, which John Henry did not do for a long time, by the way.
mhm. Yeah.
Like it was something where you could legitimately tell, like they knew what they were doing and they
Mhm,
weren't showing up because of what they were doing. So legitimate gripes from Red Sox fans are fair. But they have invested a little better in the team recently, but it's
mhm.
still not up to the Bostonian standards.
Well, one last parting shot, and that is, I I can't fathom that this is John Henry who owned the Miami Marlins. Okay, um, and they weren't good when he had them. Uh, and Tom Warner, who was in San Diego at the time, when they got this team, they couldn't have been happier.
Yeah.
And what they have created out of Fenway partnerships, if you're strictly looking at it from a sports business thing, is nothing short than an empire.
Yeah.
Okay, and we're not even talking about the money they make off of Nesson, which
Yeah.
is ridiculously high.
Oh yeah.
But you get Liverpool's a global brand, uh, more so obviously than the Red Sox, and so basically, yeah, if you're going to put your business hat on, then what they've done is they built an empire that is pretty damn impressive.
Yeah.
If you're going to put your hat on, whether you're a Liverpool fan, because the Liverpool fans scream that they're spending money on NASCAR, and the Red Sox fans scream that they're spending money on Liverpool and NASCAR. haven't even brought in Nesson and the donuts deal that they have with
Mhm.
Dunkin' Donuts. Um, so um, I think you have a universal world when you got a universal brand and you got universal fan dislike for what you're doing. That's not necessarily a good deal. Um,
Yeah.
and they don't have, and ironically for all this, they've got terrible PR people.
Oh my
So
God, do they have terrible PR? I mean, it's like they've never taken a. It's like they've never interacted with the general public before. Is what they do with their PR people. I mean, good God. Like, I mean, we're talking about like the highest up. Tom Warner. Good
mhm,
God. Don't let him talk to the general public. He's awful at it. He like they'll get up there and just flat out lie to your face like you're a 5-year old. It's almost like they're up there trying to spell out words to hide stuff from you, but it's like, hey, we know how to spell that word. Like we know
mhm.
what you're saying. So yeah, good lord, do they not know how to run a PR department?
Yeah, and it's going to be an interesting. Both, by the way, I was just checking. Warner and
Sam Kennedy.
yeah, I'm sorry.
Sam Kennedy.
No, I was just gonna say Warner and John Henry both do own homes in Boston.
Oh, oh, that's good. Yeah,
Um,
up until last year, I nobody was aware that John Henry held a home in Boston because he wasn't seen.
yeah,
So
just for the record, George Steinbrenner never owned a home or rented an apartment in New York.
can't blame him.
He
Where
um,
does he live?
he lived in Tampa.
Yeah, taxes, 100%.
What was it? It was just he George had such a an adverse relationship with the press of New York. He hated it, and I had to. I never worked for him because that was something I didn't think was a good idea. But I got to know him. I'm not going to say that we were friends. I'm just saying
Hmm.
he was someone who I got to know and got to. I literally worked on a number of projects with him on through television issues that over the years, our paths crossed on stuff. Um, and I got to say that um, George, the the person, the philanthropist, George um, bought lights for both the University of South Florida and University of Florida baseball stadiums. Um, he would go out and go to practices out at where I graduated from high school at Chamberlain, and do and basically be an assistant head coach.
Hmm.
Um, George loved sports and he loved to win,
Yeah.
and I think that in and of itself is not what we're seeing in. Let's just even forget. I mean, the Guggenheim Group that own the Dodgers. That's the same thing as a Fenway deal, right? They
Yeah.
own other stuff. So the corporate aspect of how sports has been taken over by corporations versus specific owners um, might be the one thing that has taken the game away from the fans.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely.
So anyway, we can sit here and name off owners who will never speak to us again after this, but um, we can live with that. And tomorrow is Friday, so we have plenty to talk about coming up on the weekend. A lot of fun stuff, and we'll get an opportunity to see a little golf and all kinds of good stuff over the weekend. So
Oh, caveat here.
yeah, go ahead.
Just because a team is bad does not mean their owner is not trying.
Oh no, no, no,
Yeah.
no, no.
I feel like sometimes that can get lumped together. Like
Yeah.
I as bad as things have been in Los Angeles for the Angels, I
Hmm.
still feel like every season I don't sit back there and go, well, what the hell is Artie Moreno doing this offseason? Like he's just gonna sit on his thumb and not do anything. No, like he goes out and they sign guys. They're just not, you know, you're trying to attract them to the second best team in Los Angeles, so you're not doing as well in that respect as you're going to in other places.
I will tell you, if you're out in Orange County, which is where Anaheim is, um, Artie Moreno is loved by the Angels fans because he shows up to games, he interacts with, he takes selfies with the fans. Uh, he just enjoys it, and I think Artie, you're right. Artie doesn't get enough credit because you know for he's just I think in fairness to Artie, he just gets snake bit. I mean,
Yeah,
he'll get a player, and 5 seconds after the player signs, the second player gets hurt.
yeah.
Um, yeah,
Rendon's like the best
yeah,
example of that.
right. And look at Trout.
Yeah,
Mike, usually doesn't get us through a season without something dinged up.
yeah,
But you can't. You're right. You can't do that. You can say the same thing about the Cardinals.
yeah,
Say the same thing about you know um, the San Francisco Giants. I mean, they're not bad teams, but they're people say, well, they're not competitive. Well, it's not like they don't try.
yeah,
You know, it's just that sometimes you just don't get it right, and
yeah. I mean, hey, the Giants were able to trade a bag of Fritos and the worst reliever I've ever seen in my entire life for
mhm,
one of the best left-handed power hitters in Major League Baseball last
mhm,
season. Things
mhm.
stood a pan out for them.
Yeah,
So it's not. It wasn't due to a lack of trying.
no,
Giants part. The Giants signed Willie Adames, traded for Devers. They went out and they hired Tony Vitello this year. They took the
yeah,
best college baseball coach. Like, they're trying to get creative.
yeah,
So yeah, I think it's sometimes like if you look at it and a team's just bad, it sometimes can get
mhm,
lumped in.
mhm,
But the fan bases of those teams, like it's not hard to tell
mhm.
when an ownership group cares and when an ownership group doesn't care.
Right.
I feel like some of these groups feel like they're like, oh man, like we're hiding this great.
Mhm,
It's like if you're 15, you've had your first sip of beer trying to hide it
mhm.
from your parents. Like
Right.
you think you're hiding it great. In reality, you're stumbling throughout the house and it's
Mhm.
clear and obvious what's going on, right?
Right.
So I think for those fan bases, it's generally pretty easy to tell, and that's where guys like Bob Nutting get their bad rap because
Mhm.
it is plain and clearly obvious that he does not care about the Pittsburgh Pirates the same way that Artie Moreno cares about the Angels, or they do about the Cardinals or the Giants or any one of those teams.
Or the Illich family in Detroit. I mean, they're in the same boat. I mean, the Tigers try,
Yeah,
um,
yeah. I
and
mean they signed Framber Valdez. They
mhm,
extended the contract to Alex Bregman last offseason. I think they're
mhm,
waiting on him again this offseason as
mhm,
well.
okay.
It's just more of a, there is a certain, it still does need to be understood that there is a certain cap like that these owners have because
Mhm,
the money that they're bringing in versus the money that the Yankees, the Red Sox, and the
mhm,
Dodgers are bringing in are
mhm.
very different things.
Yeah, but it's a very good point to bring that up, and because it does require a situation where owners there are owners trying. They just it's the the Yankees, the Dodgers, the Mets, the Cubs, the big budget teams. Um, they have they can screw up
Yeah.
on a $250,000 contract.
Hmm.
You can't do that if you're a mid-level to lower level, mid-market to lower market team. You just can't. You
Yeah.
can't. You can't make those mistakes.
Yeah.
Um, it
It's like
just
what we
doesn't.
talked about with these teams that'll take those flyers on some of these
Yeah.
injured players and just
Mhm.
storm in the
Sure.
minors. Like you can
Right.
do that more if you're the Red Sox, the Yankees, the Cubs, and the
Right.
Dodgers.
Mhm.
You can store those guys because you have that. You can burn that $500,000 or
Right.
whatever you got on that contract. And some of those other markets, they need that money to operate on a
Mhm.
year out basis.
Mhm. So it is what it is, and we'll see how it plays out. But anyway, Very entertaining and interesting conversation today, and we still got plenty more baseball because we only did one division. We'll just only get to do one division a day. But tomorrow we're checking out what's going on over the weekend, and gonna have some fun with that. And as always, thank you, Matt. We will get back here tomorrow, and it's a nooner, so join us. Get your lunch together, gang, and come and see us. And if you're on the West Coast, get your breakfast together and come and see us. We will have some fun tomorrow. For Matt, I'm Jim. Take care, everybody.